Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Under the Gun. I am Jon Friedberg, and this is my final episode coming at you live from the Rio. The World Series of Poker has now reached the November 9, and most of us, except for the final 9, of course, now have to wait approximately 11 months until we can play in the main event again. Always very depressing to bust out of the main event. I will say, though, I'm pretty happy with my performance. I did end up cashing in the main event. I went out on day 4. I don't remember what spot I finished, but I cashed for something like 21,000, bringing my total cashes for the year for the World Series this year to about 30,000. Now, I haven't added up all of my tickets yet. I believe I played in just under $40,000 of events, so I was a slight loser this year, but like I said, I'm happy with my performance. I feel that I played quite well, and feeling pretty confident coming into the next season, and of course, looking forward to the 2011 World Series of Poker. Now, today is a special episode because it is the last episode here at Rio before the World Series, so because of that, I chose to do this episode downstairs in the media room, which is just outside of the Amazon room where the World Series has been taking place. Now, also because of that, I thought, what better guests than probably the two most popular people in the poker world, at least for those who watch televised poker, Mr. Norm and Chad and Lon McEachern. Norm and Lon have been commentating for the World Series of Poker on ESPN since 2003 when Chris Moneymaker won the main event, and they have had a great deal of success as commentators, have really brought poker into the mainstream, and they're both very interesting guys. I've seen them walking around quite a bit around the World Series this year, and I'm looking forward to having them on this show and getting an insight as to what their job is like, what they were doing before, and sort of where poker is going from here. Before that, though, let me just say I, again, do not have an update on my Under the Gun challenge. I have, however, had a couple of sessions online on UB, and I have been profiting in those last couple of sessions. However, I don't have enough hands logged to where it really makes sense to do a comprehensive Under the Gun challenge update. However, next week when I'm hosting my show, I will have played many more hands at that point, and I will have a much better update, and looking forward to discussing that in depth, as well as talking some strategy on how I plan on winning $100,000 playing no-limit cash games on UB.com. So with that said, let me get to my panel. The two ESPN poker commentators, Mr. Norman Chad and Lon McEachern. So Lon McEachern and Norman Chad, thank you both for coming on my show.
Happy to be here.
First of all, I have to thank you for selecting a certain number of hands to air on TV, therefore teaching 90% of the world that you're supposed to go all in with so many hands that you're not really supposed to go all in with, and therefore providing myself and many others with a very nice living from those that learn how to play poker on TV.
I see. You're the bloodsucker, huh?
I try to be.
It's situational. Any two cards, anytime.
When you're taping for the World Series episodes, who decides and how is it decided which hands are aired? Aside from the obvious ones, of course, where
well, yeah, I mean, in the early days, it was 1 hour show for one final table, so you were going to show 8 knockouts, and it's a collaborative effort amongst the producers, the 441 Productions group, and while they're watching, and we're all watching the final table go down, they're looking and seeing which hands potentially could be TV hands, and of course they don't know until they get together with the people who are watching the whole cards, which we can't see at the time. So it's a collaborative effort amongst all the producers at 441.
So do you then, so you're not able to see the whole cards in real time then, so you go back and see the tapes afterwards?
None of the producers. There's a small group of people who are in a blackened security area watching the whole cards and recording them, and that info doesn't get out till much later.
Okay. So let me ask you this. A few years ago, it seemed like so many events were televised, so many World Series events were televised. This year, there's been only, 2 or 3 maybe 2 in a charity event, I think, that were televised.
A 50K event, right now.
Okay.
And we had the other
Tournament champions.
Oh, of course, forgot about that one. So Are there just fewer people that are tuning in, or is there too much poker on TV? What is it that's led to fewer tournaments being aired at the World Series?
The actual number of hours of the World Series is the same as it was a year. Actually, it's even gone up a little. Same as last year, the year before. They shifted the hours, most of the hours, to the main event. Essentially for two reasons. There's slightly greater ratings for the main event, so more people have interest in the main event than the bracelet events. And it's also a financial decision because it costs money to have crews and a whole production for separate bracelet events. Mm-hmm. You have all those people already here for the main event. You can create more hours out of the main event at essentially no additional cost as opposed to televising a lot of the bracelet events.
Okay, that makes sense.
It all comes down to finances in the end, it seems these days.
Funny how that works, isn't it? So let me ask you this. You guys have seen like all of these final tables. You probably have, insider information, if you will, above and beyond anybody else because you've seen all these hole cards and everything else. What is it that wins tournaments? Is it aggression?
I've never won a tournament. I don't know.
Okay. From what you've seen, is it luck? Is it aggression? Is it, resilience? What is it that wins tournaments?
It's a variety of all those, I would imagine. Either Norman and just aggression at the right time, and
particularly in no limit. It seems, and neither of us are no limit hold'em. Neither of us are poker players, and we're certainly not no limit hold'em players. But aggression gets paid off more often than not, particularly at the tournament level, where it's what Amir Vahidi originally said about kill or be killed, and that's what happens in poker, certainly in no limit. And then the luck factor in tournament poker, it's so frustrating to anybody. I try to explain to people who don't play poker that the cream rises to the top certainly when you're playing cash games, whether it's online or live over the course of time. But at any given moment in a tournament, the best player goes out because of bad luck. And so the combination of aggression and luck in any particular tournament is what leads somebody to win.
Which is also was the beauty and the dark cloud of the World Series, is because the pros are there to try to feed off, these amateur and novice players, as you mentioned earlier. But then you see Johnny Chan go out. He picks up two big hands and runs into two bigger hands, and so that's the beauty that anybody could come here and win in a tournament situation, and everybody knows that's part of the deal.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you say you're neither of you are poker players, yet I've seen you walking around quite a bit at the World Series this year, and I understand that you both played in events this year. How did that go for you?
I had a great time. I played in the senior event because it's a lower age senior event, 50 and over, and then I played in a 1K event the next day. I made it to day 2 of the senior event, had a ball, had a terrific time, and a lot of fun, great learning experience, and it gave me a lot of insight into what these guys are going through that I'm commentating on the whole time.
And you, Norm?
Yeah, actually, I usually play 2 events a year since we began. So, I played more poker than Lon. I played poker before we started to do this, but I'm not a poker player. So I always play in an Omaha 8 or Stud 8 or Horse event, and this year I played in 3. And last year I cashed for the first time, and after this year's 0 for 3, I'm now 1 for 15.
Congratulations.
If you just count this year and last year, you're 1 for 3, right?
We have to count the whole 1 for 15, which is an average week for Gavin Smith.
That's true.
But yeah, I'll take 1 for 15 because it sounds better than 0 for 12.
So how did your involvement with the World Series come about? Were you already doing TV commentating or comedy, or how did everything come about? And I know I've heard your voice, Lon, doing other stuff.
Yeah, I've been
ESPN.
a freelance announcer with ESPN since the early 90s.
Okay.
And I did a lot of things. I did a lot of the X Games, Tour de France, a lot of the fighting sports, K1 fighting, MMA fighting, some demonstration martial arts. And so I was doing a lot of the oddball sports. And I got a call one day that they were doing poker, and I was thrown into the oddball sport category. And I did one, and then I got called. It was early 2003. They said, "Oh, we're doing a few shows at the World Series this year. Do you want to do it?" And that was your moneymaker one. So I'm glad I did it.
And were you also, Norm, involved in TV before?
Not really. In fact, I think I was in line. I think at Radio Shack to get batteries, and they came in, and I was the only English-speaking person in line, and they said, "Come do it." Now, I had done some work for ESPN. I'm a sports writer, sports columnist over the years, and they just asked me at the time that they were going to do more shows which was the moneymaker year, they asked me to consult with a production company that did not know much about poker, essentially because I was the only person they knew with a gambling problem, and they know I played in a card room in Los Angeles. So I consulted with producers for several months, and then afterwards, after several months, they asked me an unusual question, which was, have you ever considered doing poker commentary on TV? I remember telling them,
who has?
Oh, Jesus, every little boy's dream from the time they're 5 years old. It didn't even exist. So they said, yeah, we'd like you to try it out. And I said, sure. And I actually thought about it for a few days and didn't know if I was going to do it. I called my best friend, and he said, why aren't you going to do it? I said, well, it's just poker on TV. And he said, but you have no career. I said, I hadn't thought about that. Good point. So I just, I never thought it was going to be anything. So I did it, and that's when I met him, and that was 2003.
Yeah, I'd been actually a fan of his writing for a long time. He had an NFL picks column at the time, and I would laugh every Friday when it came. And when I heard I was working with him, I was very excited. And we hit it off immediately. It was a lot of fun. Or at least I did. He's been lying to me for 8 years, I guess. Maybe otherwise. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. There's a lot of comedy in the broadcast, and I think you guys do a great job of that. There's also a lot of commentating. How much of the storyline is sort of the hero-enemy versus what's really happening in poker? Let me give you an example. So in the event that I won, Jon Fan was sort of the hero. I was sort of the amateur enemy. And there were some plays that I had made. One in particular where I had, tons of chips. I had over $2 million. He had like 300,000, and I just pushed all in from the small blind with 7-8, which is a pretty standard play. Yet you guys kind of said, oh, Friedberg's, his instincts aren't really all that great, or something was the comment. Now, how much of the story is kind of creating a hero and enemy, and how much of it would you say is like, real sports commentating? From a strategic standpoint, maybe I should say.
Well, it's the crux of any good drama, any good television story you're going to tell is going to have those arcs of personalities, and if they come across where they're hero, anti-hero, I mean, that's very common. You're going to have the antagonist and the protagonist, and I mean that goes back, to the Greek, tragedies where you have the good guy, the bad guy, and so it's just a basic nature, I think, of good storytelling in a sports scenario, I guess. I don't know. Would you agree?
No, but within that context, and we're often, we want to tell a story, and often it is going to be a white hat, black hat situation as you're describing, but within that context, then. We would not, and this is a great example you just gave, we would not then, let's say you were the black hat, as you think you were, we would not then say, boy, you're making a stupid play or you're doing something wrong, to put the black hat on you. We would say that because we're wrong. Okay, anytime when it comes down, John, to poker strategy, and I've said this for years, and I've had to apologize to players over years, I try to stay away from the actual poker strategy because I don't know what I'm talking about, particularly when it comes to no limit hold'em. So in this case, if we went back and I looked at it now, and you explained to me what you were doing, and chances are you're right, I made a mistake. I'm not trying to hang the black hat on you. Just at that point, I just decided that looked like, they actually pressure me sometimes to do a little more poker strategy and analysis. I don't like to, both from the standpoint that I don't know what I'm talking about, and I really don't care what the poker strategy is that much. I prefer the personalities, the stories. I don't like your shirt. I don't like your mother, whatever. So yeah, in that case, we're not trying to hang a blacker hat on you by saying, how can you push right there from the small blind with 7-8? I just said it and I was wrong.
Well, also, I'm going to defend you a little bit where anything you do say, you're painted into a corner because there are 18 other theories on how to play those hands, and so you can't say the right thing ever. But so he takes a great tactic and where he avoids saying what's right and wrong most of the time. Because you talk to anybody, you talk to 4 players, you get 4 different opinions on how to play that hand. You're not going to make anyone happy.
Right. So what's your expectation on the success, the televised success of the World Series this year? We've had some big stories this year. Michael Mizrachi, who just before the World Series had a sort of a public issue with his houses and some tax issues, comes in, wins the very first event for $1.5 million. His brother Rob had a great year. Eric Baldwin made a deep run in the main event. What's your opinion on how well the TV ratings are going to do this year in the World Series?
I think they're going to be consistent. I mean, we've got a core audience, and we're hoping we're reaching new people all the time. And we do try to bring out not just the events that we're televising from start to finish over the final table, but we do try to catch people up on what's going on. And when you have Phil Ivey winning a bracelet anytime, that's nice for the community also. But we're also just try to attract more of the people into the poker world and try to get them to understand it, and that'll help in the long run for everyone.
No, the World Series has a big advantage over the other poker shows. It's the World Series, it's the brand, and it's on ESPN. So that gives it an opportunity to continue to have the same ratings that it's had over the years. So we're lucky to be associated with that. It's a great production, but if they brought in, and no offense, but if they brought in Manny Moe and Jack from Pep Boys all dead to do the announcing, they would get the same viewership as if
similar to
him and me doing it. So the brand is good. ESPN obviously is the place to be. So chances are the ratings are going to stay hopefully fairly consistent.
And so after it's all said and done, actually when this show airs, we will have just reached the November 9.
And congratulations to them.
Congratulations to them.
And how about that final hand?
Oh man, that was something else. Boy, what a sucked to be the bubble boy in that spot, wouldn't it? What's next? What are you going to do for the next 12 months? Obviously, you have to work on.
Yeah, we work in post-production on this for the next 4 months, actually.
Okay.
And then from there, we start working on the World Series of Poker Europe. We have shows to finish up with the North American Poker Tour, and then it's back to Radio Shack, I guess.
More batteries?
No, I have a lot of items that need batteries, including stuff for my hair.
So what else do you guys like to do? What else? I'm
just here for the golf. Do
you play a lot of golf?
I try. Oh yeah, I love golf. A lot of people here, said, "Yeah, you're not on crutches." I had knee surgery last year, and I guess I made an impression in the crutches in the main floor here.
Okay.
So a lot of people noticed that. So I'm trying to get back to my game. Yeah.
Okay. And Norm, any hobbies or anything?
My biggest hobby, actually, since I moved to Los Angeles, is going to play poker 2 or 3 times a week in the card room.
Really?
It is incredibly relaxing. It's a game we play in which we get to drink wine pretty steadily, and so it feels like a home game. So that's my favorite hobby. My other hobby is bowling, and I can't find anybody to bowl, over the age of 12. So generally poker, I spend a lot more hours per week than bowling.
Do you get approached by a lot of people when you're at the poker room? And is that something that you're okay with?
Yeah, I'm not really, as Lon can tell you, I'm not a people person. I'm not terribly friendly to anything other than small dogs. And obviously in the card room or in Las Vegas, I get approached a lot, but not in regular life, outside, in a mall or any place. Generally, I don't get approached at all.
Okay.
It gets our ego just enough soothing just to walk through the room once here. This is our core audience here. So
right.
If they don't know us, we're hurt.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for coming on the show.
Happy to be here.
Pleasure to have you on.
Yeah.
Looking forward to watching the coverage for this year's main event, and we'll see who the lucky winner is.
Hopefully we'll finish the shows in time. You'll see it every Tuesday night.
I hope so. Awesome. Well, thanks again.
All right.
And we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Under the Gun. I have had pretty women, I've had guns, I've had porn stars, poker players, and now I've had the 2 greatest commentators in the poker world. What's next? Well, I guess we'll all find out in the coming weeks. So make sure to tune in next week right here on Card Player TV. And remember, I'm only 100 followers away from hitting 1,000 on Twitter. So if you would like your chance to win a free poker lesson by me, make sure to follow me on Twitter. I'm at Jon Friedberg. Thanks again for tuning in. I will see you guys next week.